Hey everyone, we are so excited to welcome you to our brand new podcast. I'm your girl Dajana
and Petra.
And we are about to dive deep into various topics, and we are so looking forward to just having deep conversations instead of surface level that we both know happens a lot in LA.
Enjoy.
Let's do this. Cheers.
Cheers, girl.
I thought we could maybe begin just by, saying how we met and a little bit about us so they can get to know us.
Yeah, so you and I met 7 years ago. We went to a basketball game, right? And we've been hanging out ever since.
Yeah, it was so funny because it was a bunch of Serbians hanging out together because you know how it is. When you leave Balkan, all our people like to stick together and hang out. So I remember my ex was like, hey, do you want to come? This Serbian player, he's inviting a bunch of us just to hang out and we can meet him afterwards. And I was like, well, I don't really know who that is. But I would love to go meet some cool people, and I met you. And I remember when the guy introduced us to each other, he said, this is the Croatian Kendall Jenner.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, okay, yeah, she's so pretty. And you were so nice, which was unique. That was really unique because it's hard to find people that are pretty and nice and deep. And so,
well, it's hard to find a good friend in LA in general. Right?
Yes. I feel like, yeah,
it's so hard.
I think over the years, my friend group went from 15 to 10 to now I have 3 really good friends that I can actually connect with.
I'm like, I don't even need any more friends. I know.
I'm like,
please, I have enough. That's all I need. Just 3-4 good ones, and that's all you need. You don't need a whole group of people, right?
Yeah, and once you grow and evolve, you kind of you're happier with a smaller circle.
Yeah.
So where were you back then when I met you? Where were you in life, and how was it coming to LA from Croatia?
Yeah, oh my God, I was so young. I was only 24, 25 years old. And by then I already modeled for some years. I started modeling when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
So I arrived to LA straight from Milan. I came here only for 2 months, but then I ended up liking it and I decided to stay. So here I am 7 years later. But when I compare myself now to back then, I feel like I grew so much. I feel I feel like a complete different person.
Yeah. I think you changed a lot too. Even back then you were nice. You were just, new. And how was the whole modeling experience for you starting out up until now?
It was hard in the beginning. I remember I got scouted when I was 15 years old. And they wanted me to go to Milan back then. So when I was 15, which is very young. And then my parents were obviously said, no, are you crazy? You're not going anywhere. You're 15 years old. You got to finish your high school. So I did. I finished my high school. And I think I was about 18 or 19 years old when I first traveled to Milan. And my first experience wasn't that great, to be honest. I was staying with 10 girls in a model apartment. My first experience of being in a huge city. I'm from a very small town, we have 150,000 people. So I wasn't used to metros and trams and bus, it was so hard to adjust actually the first month. And I spent 2 months there, and I returned home after 2 months saying that this is not for me and I don't want to model again. Yeah. I remember my very first day in Milan was I went to my agency to meet all my agents and to get castings and stuff. So I arrived there and they just they looked at me all right, you're okay, whatever. So that was a first big oh, I'm being judged. I've never been judged knowingly up until that point. So, and then they gave me a map of the city of Milan, and they gave me 6 castings for that day. And my booker was like, okay, Petra, here you go. Here's a map. Here's 6 castings that you need to go to today, and good luck. Wow. And I was like, oh my God. I remember coming out of the agency, sitting on the ground, and I started to bawl. I started to cry so much. I remember back then, I wasn't very familiar with GPS and, Google Maps. So I remember just using that map that they gave me, and like, yeah,
Wow.
that was like a big shock for my system and for my mind.
How was your mind? How did you feel? Did you have any anxiety or?
Yeah, oh my God. Overwhelmed with anxiety.
How did that start for you? Because later I'm going to share also, like, because we have that in common.
Yeah, we do.
And
we're like a same person in two different bodies.
Yeah, we have that in common.
Yeah.
Just the other day I was texting, I was like, what are your symptoms of this and this and that? Yeah, not that funny. But tell me about that. Like, how was it? Because a lot of people watching this will be able to relate to that. I shared one story just one time about anxiety, and I got so many people responding and saying, wow, thanks for sharing. Like, I can, relate to that. So I think it would be nice just to go pretty deep, so tell us a little bit about that.
So I feel like I feel like that first trip to Milan triggered my anxiety. That was the first time because I remember waking up in the middle of the night in my model apartment. I remember waking up with my heart beating out of my chest. So I had a panic attack, which I've never had before that. Beating out of my chest. And I remember I opened my eyes and it felt like I was detached from my body. It felt almost like I was looking at myself from the above.
Wow.
And I didn't know it back then, but that was my first experience with depersonalization, derealization. And that was kind of, the panic attack kind of triggered probably a depression. So I was depressed for the next 6 months after I came home and after I said, I'm not going to do modeling again, because of that experience. It was, I think I was already born with like a very...
like fragile nervous
very
system.
Gentle, fragile nervous system. And then when that happened, it just triggered the episode of depression. And I also felt, I remember coming back home, I felt like I was a failure because I gave up, because all my bookers at the agency were saying how crazy I am to give up and that I have such a big potential and the clients love me. So it was like, one part of me really wanted to do that, but the other part of me was like so fragile and so sensitive. And that's how I describe to people, myself to people till this day. I always say I have two Petras in me. One is very emotional, very sensitive. And then other one is like doer, go-getter, like a very hustle type of person, like I'm very adventurous and I want to do things, So I have these two Petras kind of clashing with each other all these years, basically since I was a child probably. So yeah, that was kind of, in short, my first experience with I wouldn't say mental breakdown, but my first experience with anxiety and somewhat depression.
Yeah, and I think it's really scary when you don't know what it is. Once you put the name on it and you kind of realize, okay, it's quote unquote normal and other people have it and you realize you're not actually dying.
Yes.
That's when you feel a little better about it.
Course.
But when it's the very first time.
Yes. It's very scary.
Yeah.
Especially with one of my main symptoms of anxiety and depression was depersonalization and derealization, which I feel like even till at this day, people don't really know much about it. Because it's a very, not a lot of people have it, I think. And even back then, I remember Googling about it. Oh, I feel like I'm out of my body. I feel like I'm watching myself from the distance. I feel like I'm looking at the world and it doesn't feel real. I couldn't find much research about it, so that made that experience of having DPDR even more, frightening.
Right, because you don't know what it is. So how did you actually figure out what that was and put a name on it?
So I remember, during those 6 months when I returned from Milan, my mom took me to a psychologist and I was trying to explain my symptoms to her. And I remember filling out some kind of form that she gave me, like a test. And I remember telling her how I feel, and she was just like, and then she talked to my mom later on, and she told my mom she does not have like any mental issues yet, but I really never heard about DPD, depersonalization, derealization. So even like a clinical psychologist, she wasn't really familiar with that term, with that, I wouldn't say illness, but issue, you know?
So for the people watching that think that they might have this, can you just explain a little bit about how the symptoms feel?
Yeah, you feel like you're in a dream state. You have brain fog. You feel like almost like the things around you aren't real. You feel like you're detached from yourself. It's a very weird feeling to explain to somebody if you never felt it.
Yes.
You texted me yesterday, you kind of felt a little bit like that, right?
Yeah. And it's crazy because also our culture, like where we come from, to this day, I mean, it's a little better now, but I think to this day, people don't really believe, you know, in anxiety and depression, especially depersonalization, because we're people that dealt with wars. We're people that dealt with existential crisis. So I remember the first time I told my dad I had anxiety, he was kind of like, just find something to do, you know, you're a little bored or something. But they don't realize
so typical.
Yeah, that actually is a real thing. So when I was texting you the other day, at least at this point, I kind of know my triggers. So lack of sleep is one of them. Drinking lots of coffee or alcohol, which alcohol I barely drank, but I drank like three cups of coffee that day, and then I slept only 4 hours.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was driving to the gym and I was everywhere but that car. And everywhere I look, I was like, I just felt weird. I felt like this reality is like altered, you know, almost like for people that they use psychedelics when they say like they're not here or like the K-hole that they talk about. Like I felt completely...
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, out of my body and not like a good way. Like, and then all these people that were driving by me and at the red light, I thought they were like staring at me. And that, you know, it felt like a little bit of shame that I was feeling this way. And then I got to the gym and then my heart was racing. That's my normal symptom.
Yeah,
like I always get the heart racing. I always get tingling in my fingers and toes. And then a really scary one for me is the breathing. Because when I was little, I had really bad bronchitis. And one night I actually almost died. I had a really bad bronchitis attack. And my mom was about to take me to a hospital, but even the hospitals at that time, they were not good. You know, it was like right after the war and, you know, they didn't have all the equipment that they needed. And I remember that night, I felt like I was breathing through the smallest possible straw that you can think of. Not a thick straw, like the smallest little straw. And I remember like I would take a breath and only like 5% of air would actually come in. And so that was bronchitis. And then later in life...
So it was an actual bronchitis. You don't think he had to do anything with the war and with the stress. And okay, so they diagnosed you with the bronchitis.
I actually had bronchitis. It was almost asthma. But then the problem is later on in life when I started getting anxiety and I started getting those feelings of shortness of breath from anxiety, it took me to that day.
It triggered the PTSD in you from that.
Oh my God, I would freak out. And it feels like somebody kind of holds your neck and like tightly, but just gives you a little bit of room to breathe, you know, but it holds it really tight and you're kind of like grasping for air.
I know exactly. That's one of my symptoms as well.
That's my least favorite symptom. And then to this day, I feel like even though a lot of people now do have anxiety, there's still lack of empathy and there is still lack of understanding. And the people that have it, we all understand each other. It's a little, we're all like, I get you. I know what it is. And sometimes it's so hard to even just get through the day. Like, thank God I don't have that many days of that anymore because I've worked on it so much, you know, through therapy and spirituality and, you know, God and all of that. But I will still sometimes when I'm really triggered, I'll have a day where like, I don't even want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Does that still happen to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, with me, I do not want to get out of the bed, but I'm pushing myself. That's that other Petra who's like, come on, you got it, you got it, you got it, you got to get up. If it was up to emotional Petra and fragile Petra, she would not get up out of bed for sure. But I'm always trying to push myself to get out because I know that staying in bed will only make me worse.
Yeah, and then you also have that feeling of guilt, like I'm missing out on life.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm missing out on, everything. Like one example I can think of is I was in Bulgaria shooting a movie, and it's like I'm living my dream. I'm working with one of the most famous directors in the world, and the cast is amazing, and I'm literally like, this is all I ever wanted. And I'm on set, and we go into this like really dark bar that was our set, and there was like candles everywhere, but the light was almost non-existent, and it was so hot in there. It was almost like a sauna. And I remember I was so triggered by all that, and the cameras everywhere and the lights, and so hot. I remember a moment I didn't know if I'd be able to get through it, like through the shoot. And I just imagined, and then it's like all these thoughts, and then my thoughts was like, you're going to embarrass yourself.
Yeah, you're going to end up in hospital.
Yeah, you're going to pass out in front of everyone. Yeah. You're going to have to run out, and everyone's going to be like, she's crazy. You just like make it, your brain makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So thankfully I got through it. But
how did you get through it though?
I just told myself, you have to get through this. Like you absolutely.
There's no option.
There's no other option. I literally almost like yelling at an animal, almost like stop it. And you're not gonna allow your brain to do this to you.
You know what I find that it helps me with when I'm feeling like I'm on a verge of a panic attack. This is the newest method that I've learned. It's when you feel like that, feeling like the panic attack is coming, just say, bring it on. Bring it on. Bring me the worst freaking panic attack you can. Come on, I'm challenging you. Just bring it on. Almost 100% of time, that stops my panic attack right away.
Wow.
Right away.
Because you almost surrender to it.
You surrender to it. And that's the key for everything in life. But
yeah, for me,
So try next time when that happens.
Okay. Just say, bring it on.
Just bring it on. Let's see what happens. Like, even if I faint, I don't care. I'm going to faint.
Yeah.
Even if I ended up, even if I embarrass myself, like,
yeah,
just tell that to yourself and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, it's really helpful. Like, it really helped me. But in my case, I don't have like ever since Milan and when I had that panic attack, I don't remember me getting another panic attack in that sense. Like I'm hyperventilating, like I can't breathe, like my heart is pounding out of my chest. For me, it's more like, DPDR, depersonalization, derealization. Like I get these attacks that I call them, where I just feel like overwhelmed and like, thankfully I don't have like a classic panic attacks, but I do get that. I do get overwhelmed. Like I can feel that my nervous system gets overwhelmed.
Yeah, for me, even if I'm like hot, like today.
Yeah.
Today it's 95 in LA, and we were both like, when I saw you in the elevator, I was like, how are you doing? You're like, I'm like, same.
When your nervous system is dysregulated, the worst thing you can do is to be either in a too hot environment or too cold. Because it's a stress for your nervous system. And then, of course, all of the symptoms of anxiety that you usually feel, you feel it even more. For example, for the past 2, so the heat started in LA yesterday, right? Ever since yesterday, I feel like numbness and tingling. I can't really breathe, But that's fun stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think now 1 in 3 people in America have anxiety. I read that the other day, and I thought, oh my God, it's gonna get worse. With the way that there's so much stress in the world, and I think it's important that we talk about it and that we can relate to each other.
Absolutely.
And just get through it together, because we understand what it's like, and having people around you that understand, support you, and that are good for your nervous system. Some people can trigger you. Like I remember there were times in my life I'll just sit in the room next to someone and their energy is so intense and like they're so negative about life and the things that they're saying, I'm already like my body's not happy. I'm already like, I can't be around you. But then there are those people that are just so kind and so understanding, and like just like they give you a hug and you feel better.
Yeah, of course, because they are good for your nervous system.
Yes.
So and me and you, with the way we grew up, and we can talk about it in our next episode.
Yes.
With all the traumas that we've been through with the war and our parents, and we have even very similar parents, I must say.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just, our nervous system has been broken probably ever since we were kids.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
So having a very sensitive nervous system, you're just more, you're like satellite, right? Like you pick up everybody's frequency.
Yes.
You know? So that's us. So we can walk in the room with 20 people, and if the energy is not right, like we're gonna sense that, we're gonna feel that.
Yeah. I think generally people have intuition. You know, most of us have intuition, psychic abilities.
I think everybody. It's just about how much you tapped into that.
Yes, and I think we're all born with it, but then, you know, brainwashing from society, from just like the way you grow up, the school system.
Absolutely.
You don't use it, and it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, it gets really weak. So learning to reuse those powers, those superpowers that we got from God, you know, like intuition, like your body will tell you. No, that's how I knew that my relationship was going wrong. You know, there was no other indication except for my body. You know, I would be in a room with the person and I just felt very uneasy, like for no reason. My body would I would start getting like shortness of breath. I would be very uncomfortable. I would not want to be touched.
Wow.
You know, and I didn't really have a reason for it. So I almost told myself, you're crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I was like,
but that was your subconscious mind talking to you through your body.
Exactly.
That this is not the person that I want to be with. This is not the situation I want to be with, whatever the reason is. But
exactly,
like our subconscious mind, the way our subconscious mind talks, it's through our body.
Yeah, it's so true. And if we just listen, if we just stop, if we just turn the brain off and all the chattering in the brain and just listen, we can do so much in this life. But I think most people, you know, they choose logic over their intuition and the inner wisdom.
Absolutely.
Because we have that. We have everything that I ever did in my life when it comes to, you know, career, relationships. If I listen to my intuition, it never failed me.
Wow. And your intuition is your radar, your compass to guide you in a right direction. But also in a direction of out of comfort zone. You know, your brain likes to stay in the comfort zone. Your brain wants to be there. It's comfort. That's all the brain knows, right? Even your nervous system, that's all it knows. But then your intuition may not be happy with the situation that you're in or with the person that you're with. And your intuition is keep telling you like, I'm not happy, but you don't listen. Like you want to stay comfortable. You want to stay in that zone of what's familiar to your nervous system and to your brain.
Oh my God, you said that so well. And I was just reading this book recently that I told you to read, The Mountain Is You. And the author wrote that. She said that most humans actually will choose comfort over happiness at any point in their lives because comfort is knowing and control. So having control over your life, but it's also just kind of an illusion because you never really have control. You have to let go.
Yeah.
You know, but that unknown is the scariest thing for people. And I like to call it like the cliff of the unknown that I want to jump from.
Yeah.
You know, once I jumped from that cliff, my life changed overnight completely. But getting myself to that point, like little baby steps on that cliff,
hard.
And looking around and not knowing what's over there, that is a scary place to be for most people.
It is.
And this is exactly why people settle in relationships, in their careers, just in their lives in general. They'll take, you know, mediocre 5 out of 10 instead of having a 20 out of 10, you know, because it's scary.
Yeah, it's crazy. And how much your life can be so much more beautiful if you do listen to your intuition. If you are capable of getting out of your comfort zone. And yeah, just to bring back the what we talked about before. So when I decided to go back to Milan, when I was very unhappy in my hometown, and I was like, damn, I can't believe I gave up. I gave up on myself. I gotta go and try again. But that was me leaving my comfort zone, right?
So you decided you're gonna jump off the cliff.
Yes, even though I was so uncomfortable in my comfort zone, but it was much safer for me to stay there because I knew, you know, how it is, and I'm with my family and with my then boyfriend, and I'm in my hometown. But then once I decided to get out of that comfort zone, my life went just from here up, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I think of a little town of Rijeka, where you're from, in Croatia. You went from modeling there, doing little jobs, to going to Milan, you know, like
overnight. Yeah, literally just boom, I'm here.
And then to LA.
Yeah.
That's most people's dream.
Yeah.
Is either New York or LA or maybe Miami. So you, because you jumped off the cliff of the unknown, you actually changed your life overnight, and it became the life of that many dream of.
Yeah.
And I think that's one huge thing you should be proud of yourself for.
I am very proud of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at you now. You have your own podcast.
Look at us now, girl. Yeah, I'm very happy. I'm so grateful. And I'm the most grateful for the fact that I met you and that we're here now. And yeah, we're going to spread the good word and our experiences. And I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I'm mainly excited about just diving deep. You know, I am sick and tired of surface level anything, friendships, relationships, even colleagues. Like if it's surface, I don't want it. Go away. If you can look me in the eye and actually listen when I talk, and you know, actually care about what I'm saying, and if I could do that for you, then we're real friends. Then we have, you know, a soul, and we care about each other.
Absolutely.
And I am so excited to do this for you. Thank you guys so much. This will be our first episode. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you guys. See you soon.
Stay tuned.